Regular seats, and I don't know if we're first or what.
Oh, you're not first.
Let's get a hot seat. See you later.
Welcome to the July 15th Village Planning Board meeting. I'm Rich Steffens, I'm the chair for the evening. Brogan, our illustrious secretary. John, Liz, George Rodenhausen, our attorney. And on the end, Michael Zila. One of those names. We have two public hearings, one new application, and a little bit of other business to discuss this evening. The first public hearing is at 51 Main Street. If you guys would like to join us?
Yes. Howdy.
Howdy.
Where's Maurice tonight?
Maurice is on vacation.
I figured such. California.
He's in California.
It's nice and air conditioned. So we got good news from the Ulster County Planning Board.
We got news from the Ulster County Planning Board.
Good news. And also we got approval last week from ZBA.
Yeah.
It's awesome. So we're moving along.
Is there anybody here from the public that wants to speak to this application? This is 51 Main Street. Nobody wants to speak to it? Okay. Close public hearing? No, I move that we close public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Yeah.
So moved.
We received comments from the Robert Leibowitz,
Yep.
I guess, and I'm assuming you might want to discuss this or the next steps.
Well,
or
let me
you tell
give you,
what
let me give you my quick opinion.
Great.
We don't have design, is that good English? We don't have no.
We don't have.
We don't have no. Design standards don't apply.
Right. Right.
So therefore, you have a very nice building.
Okay.
And we may have our own personal opinions as
Right.
to the architectural style,
Okay.
but that's what will stay as our personal opinion. It will not be the opinion of the board.
Okay. All right.
So we're not going to discuss that.
Okay. Well then.
On the other George, they did
Yeah.
quote something from design standards that said that,
Yep.
which I didn't quite. Again, this came to us at the 11th hour. I didn't
Me too. I
receive
got it at
this until.
6 p.m.
Okay.
And I started scrambling.
I saw it during dinner time too.
Yeah.
I don't even have their, do you have a copy with it?
Yeah, I got a copy.
I have a copy here if you guys want.
It's all in the.
It says that UCPB believes that the exterior architectural design work fails to meet the requirements of the village zoning statute. It's consistent with the context of the surrounding structure.
To me, that's a judgment call. You know, that's very,
It's very
It's true.
general.
right.
Yeah.
Design of structures. So, what they're referring to 2.26 is, no structure should be erected, constructed, placed, altered, or enlarged in any residence district, that's not
Right.
us. Except in your fine, blah, blah, blah. Neighboring structure interpretation. Interesting. 2.26 applies to a residence district.
212.26?
2.12.26?
We have used this before in laying out residential subdivisions
Mm-hmm.
to try to not get cookie cutter stamp
It
subdivisions.
refers to the neighborhood, neighboring structures, and so on, which is what they're talking about here, but this seems to apply, because the regulation seems to apply only to residential districts, which is not considered in the B2 district, so
So
I don't think they apply. Anyhow.
Okay. Well, I guess from my perspective, you know, we went through this process, and I'm not going to design everything against the agreement. We didn't know if we have bulk approval, which we do now. So I'm, you know, part of my job and what I believe in is to make things beautiful in the community. So I don't feel like that was done per se, but to get approval is great. But you know, if any board member wants to, if you want to be involved, and I'm perfectly available. You know, I mean, I would love to do that to get the best thing we can have downtown. So we have to do what's best for the owner as an architect. So I have, you know, there's cost issues and all kinds of issues in use, and so I'm, you know, I have to kind of balance a lot of stuff. So, but we'll do that. We'll you know, that's not actually one's the drawing.
The question I really have, Richard,
Yeah.
to move this along,
Okay.
is the last site plan I have, I don't think it's completed site plan.
Okay.
When was the last time you submitted the site plan?
To this board, and then we updated a little for ZBA. There were some minor notes which I submitted at that time.
Indicating more about the setbacks and the.
Yes, the area.
It was tailored to the ZBA.
Yeah, and I think I gave you a copy, and I believe this is the latest copy, so if you wanted to refer to that.
It was revised once, right?
Yes,
It was first dated
I have 610 on this date.
Right.
ZBA
June
meeting.
10, that's
Yeah.
the one that we had.
610,
Yeah,
yeah.
I don't know that.
Okay, I think I gave
That's
Rogan.
5, 6.
Right, there's not really a substantial difference from that. I did give it at the last meeting, but I gave one copy and I emailed it, so. But
Okay.
what that was about was building area notes, because just the way they were organized.
Okay.
We wanted it clearly, and what this said, existing, proposed. The other related back to the previous approval, which is now removed from the drawing. Yeah.
So Rich, what is our schedule here? Tonight was public hearing,
Well, today we had the public hearing.
and then what do we tell the applicant? What plan is going
I
forward?
mean, if you're ready to move for approval, we can certainly,
We have to do secret.
we have to do
Seeker,
seeker.
we have another public hearing tonight.
But I just feel that, you know, we just got back these comments from the county.
Yep.
Our chairman, our other member of the board chairman is not here.
Okay.
I don't, unless you are in some kind of a rush that would require us to move at a pace that I wouldn't be comfortable
When
with.
would be the next meeting?
I would imagine so. I mean, I can take a straw
The next
poll.
meeting, the first Tuesday in
First
August.
Tuesday in
August 5th.
So I gotta wait like a whole month? Or 2 weeks?
2 weeks.
No, 2
2
weeks. 2 weeks.
I'm available at that date. Okay.
I'm here.
Then,
I don't see any problem, and we can poll the board for that. I don't
No,
see
it's
a
fine,
problem
yeah.
at this point.
Whatever's easy for you guys.
But I would like to have a discussion with our attorney, get a resolution drawn up.
Okay.
The other thing I'd like to do, George, is I'd like to get a resolution regarding parking on this application,
Yeah, well, okay.
because we are really using our discretion.
I got
I think if your draft that goes through those findings on parking.
So we can use the minutes as,
Did you get to see it? The draft? Yeah. Did you have comments on it?
or you put it in your letter?
It's there's a draft resolution on your desk.
No.
You
It's
can
in
look
this
at
part. You
it.
can keep it. It's in there.
You're right, you don't have to act tonight, but
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see that till just now.
okay, I got you late today.
That's okay.
yeah,
Might want to look at it and see if there's anything in it that, like, I did not adjust, I noted the county's comments, but did not, as you just said, did not require any changes, because it didn't seem that was necessary.
No, I don't see it.
You do have that recommendation from the county, which sounds like it's required. In other words, you need a supermajority going back to overrule it, which means now you need 4 members if you want to move forward and not change anything in design. You would need a 4 vote, unanimous vote of this board.
it doesn't say mandatory, though.
I'm sorry?
It doesn't say mandatory.
No, it doesn't, but it's mixed. It's a funny
Okay.
way they write
A
it.
required modification. Yeah, that's true. It does say that.
They
All
do
right.
say support it, and then they have one comment, so.
Okay. True.
Again,
All right.
I just received this.
Me too.
So for me to review this and act on it at this meeting,
Okay.
I would be much more comfortable at the next meeting.
Yeah, okay.
And then we can devote more time, too.
Yeah.
All of us can
Well, we'll-
look at the plans
yeah.
from a site plan point of view.
Okay. Yeah, do you want,
I I just want to make sure that that June one was the most recent site plan, and that's what it is, right?
It's 610, so,
So 610 is, and you said the actual,
Yeah.
there's no difference between that and the 5.
I would say I'll make you copies if you wish to get you up to date.
6.3.
I have a 6.3, yeah, there's a 6.3 and then a 6.10.
Okay, I missed the 6.3, so we can wait.
If you wouldn't mind,
Sure.
that'd be good.
In fact, why don't I give you this one now, so you guys have 1, 2 at least, right?
Yeah, I have one in my
Yeah,
office, yeah.
okay, great.
Can you email this?
Yeah,
Did you already
I did at the time, but I will send it out again so that it's clear, unless you want to.
Yeah, we don't, hard to
How many
have.
copies have you got from him? How many copies have you emailed?
You can probably wallpaper the place with it, yeah. We don't like cutting down trees either.
It's all on the phone, I don't print it out.
So do you want another copy of this now, or I'll just make?
If you could
one?
email it to me, it's fine.
Okay, and who wants hard copies?
To Michael or George?
George? Okay, you
Yeah,
guys,
I'll
I'll get you one, or you have an you do have another one, or I'll
Yeah,
make
you
you
can do
one.
one this week.
I just can't print one out that size.
Okay,
Yeah.
great,
Okay.
good. Okay, so was there anything else that you just want to look it over, there's nothing missing that, okay, great,
Okay?
all right, beautiful.
I don't think the light at the end of the tunnel is going to come on through. There's the sun.
No, you know, I'd rather have like, or I have Maurice here too, so he has his info as well. I don't
Yeah.
think
that's
this
good.
is happening.
I think that's good.
Well, it's not a matter of making without him. I mean, we could overvote him, but we just got this information today.
Yeah.
so.
Okay. Well, I again commend you guys, honestly, but it's been a fast process.
Yeah, no.
Dimitri doesn't really know. It's really going well, so
Well,
thank you.
you've been very cooperative, thank
I'm
you.
just curious, did you have to get involved with the village board and the building inspector on that fire district limits issue? I know
read
you-
the
They removed it from the law. It's no longer in the law books,
Okay.
so they don't have to.
Wow.
So it's
That's
no
good.
longer operative.
Well, that was good. Okay.
All the planets are aligning.
Yes, they are.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Keep going. Thank you. Thanks. Do I get this?
Our second public hearing tonight is Rock and Snows, 28 Main Street, proposed new building. Is anyone here to speak to the Rock and Snow application? You were this popular in junior high, too?
At graduation at the giant Queens movie theater, they were calling up the graduates. It was like Joe Smith, Bob Jones, Gottlieb. I didn't have a first name, you know. That was the way it worked. So, junior high school was a bit of a nightmare. I won't be at the next meeting. I'll be in Utah and then in Turkey.
Well, let's see if we can close this public hearing, I think. Close it?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next meeting is, you will be,
Well,
but you will, okay.
I can be here. Do we need to be?
well, there were a number of
Well,
questions about I thought, at least my notes were, that there were a number of open issues on the site plan, like lighting and landscaping, all those issues.
Yeah, we have,
Is there a new site plan?
yes, Joe.
Those are the main things. There's
It's still missing,
still some
still missing things.
despite my best efforts to get the civil engineers to put it down there. They did not add the trees and the bushes
Oh,
that
okay, so this
we
is
had in
June
there, so this
17.
has to. So there will be another copy coming around, but we'll have those things, which will be the final.
Okay.
But there is screening, and
Yeah.
Some of the things are in here.
Yeah, some
Like
of
grass,
it's, right. Some of it's in there, but what isn't in there is the marking of the trees that are
Right.
on our property and right off the property to show the screening from the residential districts in the back and whatnot.
right,
And then also we added some low bushes in the front to help with that screening from the road, the parking lot. And that is not included in there too, but will be for the final. And then there's, from the county, there's the you know, the possibility of stormwater retention, adding some more things, some
Rain garden.
right. So is that something that you guys would recommend also, and we should move forward with? I think the language seemed a little bit they weren't it wasn't definite, but that is definitely something we can include.
You know, it's the sort of thing that comes up in the environmental review, but
There's so little disturbance of that site with this building. So what you've already got paved down there. I think the county's a little excessive there.
What type of rain garden or bioretention would they be asking for? The county.
Having the slightest idea.
Well, I think the intention is, I think the county recognizes the site's already largely impervious and sort of would guess that the objective is to take advantage of an opportunity or not miss possibly an opportunity. So have the village and the applicant consider within your budget and your design, is it feasible to actually reduce the amount of stormwater runoff by doing a rain garden or some other form of bioretention that wouldn't just put everything into the stormwater system. So, you know, that if you guys want to talk about that and consider it, I mean, as an individual on the planning board, if you decide that that's of value to you, I think it would certainly be valuable for the village. There's a lot of water that runs off in that area. But on the other hand, if it doesn't meet your budget or your design, and
I don't think it's a matter of that. I think one of the issues here is that everything seems to run off toward, if you're facing the property from Main Street, the front left corner, where the building is going to be, and there'll be.
Okay.
So to build it there, you know, that's where the sidewalk is, the
Okay.
access to the main sidewalk. I mean, we could put it somewhere else, but it would only catch the water coming directly into it.
Or you might then actually have
Everything
to
does
move.
run that way.
Okay. Unless you piped it and actually deliberately moved it
And
into
it,
in that.
the way I see it is that the added grates that they're proposing to put in the rear are going to alleviate the ice problem
Right.
coming onto Main Street.
Yes.
Yeah, no, that's great.
And if they were to put in a rain garden, then it might be in the back, but
Right. That's where this is where it would make sense
to have it in the back,
Because this is where
right?
the runoff is coming from, this site and
Yeah.
our
Yeah.
site. It's right along the property line.
Yeah, maybe we can put something toward behind the building.
Okay. I mean,
But would
That is.
But would that meet, if most of the water is coming down and it's in that general area, would putting it in the back do any good?
Well, it starts in the back,
Okay.
but it also comes from right behind the other buildings, the restaurant and Snugs comes around.
Yeah, this.
But it
catch
also
basin-
comes from Jonathan Cohn's building where we have our annex. There's water that comes from there. So if we put it in the back, it might catch some of that before it gets to the drain that we're putting in to connect.
Right. This catch basin here in the back is going to prevent the runoff from going along the property line, running out into the
Onto
street
Main
normally.
Street, yeah.
So, that putting it somewhere before that catch basin, if we were to do some sort of bioretention, that's where it should go, because that way we're catching something before it gets into the system. But if anywhere else up in this corner is already the water is being deflected by the catch basin system, and this is all parking lot, so it kind of this is where most of the flow is coming from, goes across here and down this, so that
We would catch
if
the
we were
down
to do
this.
it, that's where it should go, in my
Do
opinion.
you want me to?
No, I'm familiar with the area. Okay. So I understand the purpose, but oh, all right. Just seems like an odd recommendation. I'll do it.
Right. Personally, I wouldn't think it's totally necessary. It's definitely something that we can do. Like I said, seems in my mind at least this is where we want it to be. That's where the most runoff is. But
My concern about having a water retention of any kind, whether you want to call it a rain garden or a stormwater retention pond or any of that, is you know, how deep would it be, how much is it going to contain, and then there's the safety factor. A lot of stormwater retention ponds, it's practically a requirement, I don't know about Ulster County.
To fence them in?
To fence them in.
Yeah.
And then it turns into a safety problem.
Yeah, I don't see this as a stormwater detention pond. I think the only feasible thing is a size appropriate rain garden. And I don't know the specifications, maybe you have experience with them, but I think, again, reading into what the county planning board is probably considering, given the wording here under their required modification, I guess what they're saying is they're trying to encourage communities to consider these when there are opportunities to do it. And even if it reduces some of the stormwater, then that's a plus. I mean, given our situation in New Paltz with the sewer stormwater problem.
The two of you might know here is that I think one of the other issues to building this is it might just be a bathtub. Because I think these are based, I looked this up when I saw that from the county, that you know, you're going down, you're putting in a lot of rocks, and then maybe some plants that can survive with mostly rocks. But I also think that those things are done with the express intent that water that goes down there is eventually going to infiltrate surrounding areas. But being in Wirtz and you where your house is near the river and looking at Water Street, there's a ton of bedrock there.
Right.
So if we hit bedrock, it's going to just be a bathtub.
That's a good point.
And it won't really go anywhere other than the hole that is dug.
And it turns into
That's
a
not a
little
lot.
mosquito factory.
Yeah.
So I'm a little concerned with that. But it's sort of maybe this is a thing we wait and, you know, you dig the hole and you go, oh, this is going to just be rock. And then it's not such a great idea.
By hole, what you mean the pond? Or
It's not a pond.
Right, it wouldn't be a pond, it'd be some sort of, ditch or big hole that you then have infill with loose material. So there's nothing that you can actually fall into, but you're creating a large amount of permeable surface that can hold that water to go into. And then you'd have plants and things with their roots extending down in there,
right.
trying to maybe grow out of that water.
Would you consider growing food?
There's not really a lot of space to grow food. It would just be a token
Hops,
gesture.
maybe.
And also what kind of plants that are going to be doing well in that wet environment is probably not going to be food. You're going to want
Next to
soil.
apartment.
Right,
It's
next
also
to
not
apartment.
clean water. It's
Yeah, you're
necessarily
getting
running down
right.
into
I don't
that.
think you'd want to eat that.
It's running
So
off-
it could be a pretty little
Try to
landscape
park it
environment,
on
but
some
other,
stuff.
yeah.
I'll answer my question first. I don't see a need for it. But does the rest of the board like to pull the rest of the board? Do you think we should
Yeah,
send this to
in
our
this-
engineer? Do you think we should be sending this to our engineer for his comments?
I don't, in this particular site plan, I don't think that it's, right, I don't think it's necessary.
John?
I don't know.
No? Michael? No.
My comment is, no, I don't think we should send it to our engineer, but if the applicant is willing to do a little more work into seeing if it is feasible, then that's great, but beyond that, I'm not going to push it.
When do you think you'll have your next site plan available for us? Look at.
Well, I'm gonna have to go to talk to Menbach and Eggers again, and because they have to send it out to be all approved. But next week.
Kind of explain.
Which is the next meeting is
Second or something? Fifth?
August what?
August 5th.
5th, so that isn't it 2 week submission before we get on the agenda?
I'd like it to be, but, you know.
I mean, the next version will be your final version, I assume.
Yes.
We've gone through the public hearing, what to do with seeker, so the sooner you get it in, the better, and might be able to act on it.
Okay.
And if not, then Rich won't be at the next meeting, but you will, would you be at the second meeting in August, Rich?
No.
Okay.
We're not getting back to the beginning of September.
Okay.
I mean, I'll be there for both of them.
So we could,
Still proceed.
yeah.
We can still proceed.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So
Okay,
we'll
thank you, gentlemen.
get you to the next stage. And go from there.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Oh, is there Mr. Myers? Proposed lot line revision. Applicant Bruce Stevens.
You didn't come?
Frederick Myers. Mr. Myers, no. Mr. Stevens, no. Is that Mr. Stevens there? Okay, let's move off of that. We come to other business. Frank, can you just refresh me on the problem with the village attorney's looking at one of these issues?
Yes, 212, 12, whatever it is, 3B, something to that effect, is being reviewed again after George's comments. Frank is reviewing it again, and we'll bring it to your board next time around.
So we'll have that for the meeting on the 5th?
I think so, yes.
Okay.
Okay, so we just hold off on that one.
Yes.
Okay, which leaves us with formula zoning. Would anybody like to make a comment? God knows I got one.
I have a couple of questions. First, a clarification. Based on the wording, my understanding is this only applies to retail businesses. It does not apply, for instance, to banks.
Or gas stations?
Well, gas stations was a question I had. I wasn't sure if that fell under the... But it would be correct to say it doesn't apply to banks, since they don't sell goods.
Correct.
But gas stations, they do sell goods, and they often sell other things besides gas. So,
I don't think it's expressly said one way or the other.
okay. I'm just wondering about an interpretation. That was one question, and how you address that issue. You should go ahead. I had some notes and I have misplaced them, so I have everything.
I have a problem trying to write a law that would be fair for somebody to own a small little business, even if it was a national franchise, and not be able to do it in the village because it was a national franchise. I mean, I know myself that if Helen and I were driving down Route 1 from Maine and we came across Evelyn Crabtree and, I don't know, Pottery Barn store in some little town, we'd stop. We'd say, hey, those are the kind of shops we like, because we recognize them. Having some shops we recognize in town, I mean, I think Starbucks is good for Main Street loopholes. And it's a national chain, and I think it's good. I'm not drinking Starbucks coffee anymore. But I do think when people come through this town and see that little chain, it says a certain thing about the locality. I just don't see that we're going to be limiting based on just because they're a chain store, just because they have a formula for success, that we keep them out of loopholes.
Is Starbucks prohibited under this? Do you think?
I would say it would be.
Yeah.
I would think so, yeah.
Not to say that we would kick Starbucks out of the
No,
village.
no, they're there, but they are retail in the sense they sell food.
Yeah.
Are there any others, do you know, any other national?
I mean, Evelyn Crabtree is one of those little shops I always liked.
They're not necessarily national. I don't think you should use the
Right.
notion of national. It's any chain with more than 5 instances.
Yeah.
That doesn't have to be national, it could be
Several more
regional.
sales.
Stewart's
Even lower.
shops would qualify. They're statewide.
Right.
And
Stewart shops.
Stewart shops would,
Right.
we have one in the village.
That's right.
And that would certainly fall under this. I mean, I think your point is good, Rich, but I also see the flip side, which is that without some measure of control, you can end up with your main street or in a city, or large sections of your city that are entirely national chain stores. And so the balance And the desirable impact of what you're saying of having a limited number in combination with local stores, it gets lost, and then it's nothing but national chain stores. And without design standards, like some communities in the Hudson Valley have, you have very limited ability to control how even a national store would look on your street. Some communities are able to do that very effectively, so a chain fast food store almost doesn't look recognizable, but it's still there.
I mean, if you go to Freeport, Maine and try to find the McDonald's, you could be walking up and down Main Street all day.
Yeah.
Doesn't look anything like a McDonald's.
Yeah.
The one in Rhinebeck, a little more so, because the signage.
Yeah, but
But my point is, why are we writing a law for a little village that has about 99% occupancy on its commercial district, very little vacant land, the cost of putting a plottage together to put in a 3,000 square foot store, which is the biggest store you can build under our current zoning. I mean, these things are almost impossible already in our current zoning. Why would we stop a small little shop like a Laura Ashley or an Evelyn and Crabtree from coming into the village?
For all the reasons given in this law.
I understand, that's why I'm not in favor of it, but
Would this law affect a franchise? Say an individual within the community wished to purchase a franchise of a particular business, and that business is a national or regional franchise, and it had more than 5 units as part of its franchise group. Would that prevent that individual from purchasing the franchise rights, capitalizing, and opening the business?
If the store is designed like every other store, then I would say yes.
yeah, that's the way I would read it.
So really what we're doing is we're, this law is limiting the type and scope of businesses that can open in the community, and limiting it to essentially already existing businesses. And
no existing businesses.
yeah, existing businesses and
Non-franchise.
and non-franchise small businesses. Is that correct?
By existing,
Well, I mean, in other words, say P&G's wanted to expand and open another location within the village, that they could. So limit it to the existing businesses that are already here.
yeah, but you have to accumulate 6 individual units, or as you put it, or 6 businesses
To be
under
considered
the same
franchise under
umbrella
this law.
that have some level of uniformity among them, and those are prescribed in the law. So I don't see it as particularly restricted that way. I mean, if a business in our community was successful enough to expand, and a couple of them have, and I know of 2 restaurants I can think of, have at least one other location, that wouldn't fall under this. I mean, you have to get big enough to have 6.
Right. No, I'm just saying we're limiting it to what? Okay, we're limiting the type and the scope of businesses that can open here, essentially. Okay.
It would be very difficult to open up a smokes for less than Newpol's under this.
Right.
It's limiting the type, it's limiting the ownership of business. I just wonder, has this been looked at the constitutionality?
Yes.
And you have somebody did a memo on this?
There's actually several case law studies that this type of
This model?
wording, yes.
I mean, I can understand wanting to prevent classically Walmart, using them as an example, a large retailer from coming in and dominating the commerce in the area. But of course, we're not prevented from going 5 yards outside of the village limits and doing it. I can understand wanting to do that, but I'm just concerned that we're, in a sense, selecting or placing structures on it which limit people's ability to open businesses should they want to, and It just seems kind of broad to me. I mean, but if it's passed law, it's passed law. But I can understand part of it. But part of me doesn't like saying that, you know, yes, you've got the capital, yes, you have the business acumen, but no, you can't because there's 6 units.
I'll give you a good example. It's nearly impossible to open up a private auto parts business. Nearly impossible.
Right.
Because of the inventory we take to carry and everything else. So if you wanted to open up an auto parts business, you'd almost have to go to one of the nationals and use their purchasing power and formula power and supply power. And we've, you know, the area down on North Chestnut Street is an area where we see a business like that. But this, not under this law.
Right.
So if Advanced Auto or AAA Auto or
What
Pep
about
Boys or...
STS? That
Yeah.
STS would have fallen under.
Yes,
would fall
FDS
under-
would have fallen under it. What's currently opened up down there, yes.
Yeah, I'm not, but I guess that's where I'm not sure if I agree with you. Whether, auto parts is a good example. I had another one and it's that one. Hardware stores are often another example.
Right,
Of
yes.
ones that, but on the other hand, I'm not sure that they would be caught in this net because, for instance, you might have, for example, a True Value hardware store, and that the supplier is national and the store name includes True Value, but in no other respect does it fit the criteria. It doesn't have.
But it's a franchise.
But that's okay. That's not in and of itself prohibited. What's prohibited is one that has a level of uniformity in architecture, in merchandise display, in uniforms required by employees, and so on. And if you meet 2 or more of those criteria, that's what's being prohibited. But I suspect that if you walked into, for instance, the True Value store in New Paltz, and you walked into a True Value store like Stone Ridge, which might be True Value, they don't look anything the same.
No, but I would imagine they carry probably similar amounts of merchandise,
They probably do.
similar types, and they may have certain schematics based upon the franchise and the way that certain things are
When they
laid
have
out.
co-op advertising.
But I guess the question then would be for the village board, would places like that be, you know, could you do an analysis, if you haven't already, to address whether or not those kinds of businesses would get caught in this or not?
This has been a disputatious issue. There are members of the village board who have insisted that the wording of this would indeed clearly apply to STS as well, by the way, some people think as a bank. Because you may at some moment say, well, the bank is not a retail operation, but
Yeah, it is.
indeed, Chase Bank is called a retail bank. And it's understood to be providing services that are retail services.
Well, then we would be then telling Ulster Savings that they couldn't be because they have more than one.
And they look a lot alike. Now, I'm not saying that all members of the board are in agreement with that, but this point has been raised in board discussions. So it's not as though you might be the first people thinking of it. This has been an issue, and it may need, I mean, you might want to recommend something. You want to recommend something about this that would help to clarify it, or that would, express an alternative opinion, even if you were generally favorable to it. So, but this issue, this particular issue, what is the extent of this? How does this apply to True Value in particular? How does it apply to STS in particular? This has been raised in discussion. But not everybody is as comfortable as everybody else about the way it is presented to you right now.
Okay.
Well, what do we send back to the village board?
Oh, that's a tough one.
I say we send back our representative from the village board, tarred and feathered.
Well, I don't agree with that.
We'll attach it to the tar. Send you packing.
Well, I have a question. If any company, any business that wants to open up in town, whether it's a mom and pop business or whether it's a chain store or a franchise, they still have to come and go through the planning board and the zoning board of appeals if necessary.
If necessary.
Yeah, so on and so forth. So you still have a certain amount of control over who comes in, like in the very beginning on their section 1 in their findings. If not monitored in number 9, the increase of formula retail businesses in the village, if not monitored and regulated. Well, if you are, to put it in plain terms, super picky about who comes in and who doesn't, and will they abide by certain architectural changes to their cookie cutter model, like in Rhinebeck, where they've modified it. To me, this is almost too black and white. We don't want them, period, is what this says, unless I'm reading it incorrectly. Why do we want to say it's an absolute? Why wouldn't we be able to word it in such a way that we say, we're not thrilled with the idea, but we'll entertain it?
Not, the-
I would rather see us control franchises and stand by signage
okay.
than by use.
By
I think the
signage?
signage is the one that we find obnoxious. Big golden arches. I think we can control the signage and have them, like I said, go down Main Street in Freeport, Maine, and find me the McDonald's. Very, very difficult to do. You know, you have to kind of know
Well,
where
it's
it
not
is.
just signage, it's architectural design standards
Well,
as well. Neither-
Sometimes the design is signage,
Yeah, but that's, I
the
mean,
playrooms on the front.
But it's saying specifically unregulated and unmonitored establishment, if not monitored and regulated.
Right, and so
And
if
it
we
seems like that we
monitor
have
and
a lot
regulate
of opportunity within the planning board, the ZBA, and the village
might
board
not.
to monitor and regulate.
but not necessarily, if it's allowed by right, and we have no architectural design standards,
They could adopt them.
then
Well,
we
yeah,
can't,
you
we
adopt
can't
it.
say,
Okay.
what's that?
You can adopt them.
I see what you're saying.
No, I know, I'm saying that's an alternative, but as our code exists right now, I don't think that you can't say, oh, we'd rather have a private pharmacy move in rather than a chain pharmacy
Right.
move in, because we don't have it, if it's an allowed by right use on that site, and the chain pharmacy is the
Then
first
the
one to
chain could
come,
turn around and sue us and say,
we can't say no to you and say
Got it,
yes to a
okay.
local
But
one.
this would allow us to say no.
This would
Right.
allow us to say no, but
It-
your argument is maybe we can achieve a similar objective through other changes to the code
well,
rather than just prohibiting formula businesses.
but this is saying, don't even bother to apply because we're not going to allow you?
Right.
That's correct. Yeah, it's a prohibited use.
But this is really trying to get to the economics of competition. And
Right.
it says it right in number 9 there, that the purpose of this is to stimulate small and medium-sized businesses,
Right.
make them competitive. And the assumption is that anything that's connected to a chain will have economic advantage and drive out diversity and so on. So it's not really, I mean,
It's not just
it's also
aesthetic.
about what it looks like, but it's,
Yeah.
because we can control what it looks like through
Mhm.
zoning. The reason I know it's been looked at in other places, but it's kind of dicey to say we're going to keep you out because you have a lot of resources. You know, you're wealthy. You're a business that has a lot of money, and so we don't want you in our town because. And I'm not saying it's wrong. It's just that that's the issue is trying to get at here.
Yeah.
Is the
Yeah.
competitive disadvantage of local businesses.
Right.
So yeah, the answer is no. You can't come in if you have a certain type of ownership, which is you have more than 5 stores and they look alike. So
I don't know, I think it's poorly worded. I understand the concept behind it, and I agree in part with the concept behind it, but I think that the poor wording of it bothers me because it does seem to foster the notion that we're going to select which businesses get to come into the community, which don't, and I understand a lot of communities do, and down to, you know, making a decision on whether we think that it would adversely affect competition. And I don't know, do we have the ability as a small village board to select winners and losers and economic opportunities?
That's the issue I think is dicey. But I think this needs to be crystal clear so that there isn't anybody making that decision. That decision is made
Okay.
by the village board at
Right.
one time.
Right.
Right.
And either
Okay.
you're okay or not okay, but a board like this should not decide.
Right.
Yeah.
Each
You're
time.
sort of too big or not too big. That would be really dangerous.
Yeah, if we want to protect diversity and retail base in this community, maybe we ought to get rid of a few pizza joints.
Now you're trading.
Now I'm treading on thin ice. I know.
We're gonna have to
Mr. Chairman, I also point out one other thing. When the B3 district was conceived and then proposed and considered by the planning board and recommended for adoption and then adopted ultimately, there are design standards in that B3 district. So it's not impossible for this village to adopt design standards.
Oh, yeah.
And those design standards might accomplish some of what I think John and Michael are both suggesting. That you could either, one, limit the kind of businesses that would want to look like that by having design standards. Or if they were willing to come in, then they have to adapt to what the village wants to look like. But you would not be making the economic decision,
Right.
based on whether there are 6 outlets for this enterprise.
It's a tough one.
Yeah, it is.
I mean,
Well, I mean, are we ready to make some recommendation back to the village board? Would you like to
sure, we
continue?
can try.
Or do you want to continue the discussion into the next meeting, or?
Well, I don't know what kind of recommendations we could make.
I'm perplexed.
I'm not sure we agree.
Yeah.
Enough to make a
Yeah.
recommendation we can vote on.
May I one more thing? I would just like to suggest to you that, as I mentioned before, this board was requested to make a recommendation concerning the B3 district. It didn't happen quickly, but it did happen. And after serious consideration, the board recommended that by and large, that was a right idea to go with. And it was then forwarded on to the village board with that recommendation.
Ellen? Yeah, sure.
If we know what we're trying to accomplish, which is to encourage local businesses or protect local businesses or whatever that is there a way to come at it from a different direction and look at, keep that as the central focus? What do we need to do that? And it might not be an arbitrary, not allowed franchises. There may be all sorts of ways that we can foster local businesses, protect local businesses.
So are you suggesting maybe that we, instead of just simply applying sanctions against these types of businesses, we perhaps figure out some way to offer preferences for smaller businesses, like fast-tracking designs or other things of that nature?
I don't know. I don't know we can offer preferences. What I'm suggesting is, instead of saying what we can't do, look at how we design a portion of the code that says that we think this is in the best interest of the community. How do we go about making that happen?
It's interesting that we're talking about design standards when in front of us tonight were 2 public hearings for 2 buildings that couldn't be more different in their design. One being a representation of Dutch step architecture, and the other being glass and steel.
Yeah.
Couldn't be more different. And both are small local businessmen.
but they can also each be good design and therefore have a place in our community.
Just represents the problems in writing such a piece of legislation. Well, am I taking it we're not releasing anything back to the board yet?
Not yet. I think I'd still
Then
want
can we
to
put it
look
on
over.
the schedule again for the 5th?
All right, that's fine.
We have meetings, minutes from the meeting. Any of these spelling people have any problems? I didn't see any. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
For, oh, the minutes.
Yeah, the minutes of
no,
June
yeah,
17th.
no, no. Yeah, I didn't find any problem.
Yeah, it's fine.
All right.
Wait, okay, never mind.
Again, they're rather lengthy. You want to wait and hold them for the next meeting? That's fine with me. No, okay. So Liz made the motion to approve, Michael seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Before we adjourn, I have one, just remind me, I have one question for our liaison. In these minutes, we had discussed and made a recommendation to the village board about the comprehensive plan.
Yes.
And I'll just read, recommend that the village and town boards consider that the lead agency handling responsibility of updating the joint master plan for the community be the village and town planning board. Was there, was that forward and any,
yeah.
was any?
I did communicate the wishes of this board to the village board, and indeed in the course of the discussion, I re-emphasized it because I thought we might be losing track of that. And the board was sympathetic to the planning board having a significant role, if not the sole role. And I think that the sense of the board was that there ought to continue to be a village board, and if it's a joint August 7th.
Oh, they already found a firm?
No, there were potential consultants that have any questions for us.
Right,
So they
they
can
can
ask
come
us
in and ask
questions.
questions, and then,
And then 2 weeks later, we'll make the decision. No, we'll have all the applications and go forward with them.
all right, so if indeed the town and village planning boards, if indeed the town and village boards agree that the planning boards should play a role in the town planning boards, it would be great if they could have representation when the RFPs are being reviewed and discussed. And ultimately, I know that the town and village boards have to make that decision, but it could come with recommendations from the planning boards.
Well, I think Brett and I can then communicate that there is a strong continuing interest on the part of the planning board to be engaged not just after the fact,
Right.
but in the process.
Yeah, I'm speaking for myself. I'm
No, I think you're doing well. Keep going.
okay. I just want to. Okay, fine.
But I'm happy to communicate.
Yeah,
this,
please do.
and I can get back up from Brett. So if you want to also include it in the minutes,
Yep.
then we'll make sure that we have at least a 2 or 3 pair communication to the
Okay.
boards.
Is there any?
No, not at all. No, I'm in agreement.
Okay, thank you.
Was I also accurate in my presentation of what I said?
Do I have a motion?
Yeah, okay.
To do what?
Oh, I can't do that.
To do what?
Adjourn.
Oh, yeah, I'll make the motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Sure.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Thank you very much. We are adjourned.
All right.
George,
I'm off to Mohawk, yes.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm going to be playing tonight, though.
The copy of the.
I'm just